Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast. Today, we're going to be breaking down my latest mock draft, my second of this draft cycle. But before that, let's have a word on the Super Bowl as the Los Angeles Rams have just been crowned king of the NFL. It's been really a crazy team building process for the Rams as they've mortgaged so many of their future draft picks to assemble this core of stars. Alex, what are your initial thoughts on the Rams' victory in the Super Bowl?
I mean, congratulations to the Rams. I'm definitely happy for a lot of players on the Rams. I've been a big fan of Matthew Stafford for a long time. I think he was really, doubted in Detroit, and I thought he had a lot of really good skills that we saw this season with the Rams. And then, I mean, to name off a few guys that I was happy to see win a Super Bowl, Andrew Whitworth. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Eric Weddle's a great story. Aaron Donald. I mean, the list really goes on and on with the Rams. I would have loved to see Joe Burrow win, but I think he'll be back in the Super Bowl at some point. So, good for the Rams. I'm happy for a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I think this is part of the story for Joe Burrow. They just didn't have the offensive line to do it this year, but at some point in his career, as I've said, as early as September, I think the Bengals are going to win a Super Bowl. And as for the Rams, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if in this copycat league, you see other teams try to employ the Rams' approach. And I would say that if teams try to do that and they trade a good amount of draft capital for established veterans, I don't know if it would work because I still think the draft is king in terms of building a team. It worked for the Rams. I don't know if it would work for other teams, but I'm really intrigued to see if there's going to be a philosophical shift in team building as a result of this Rams Super Bowl victory. And I think now we can jump in to my mock draft. And Alex, you can pull up the first 10 picks. And for anyone listening along, I'll be reading them off one by one. So don't worry if you're on Spotify or any of our other platforms. And first overall, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama. And if I'm going to be honest, most of the reason that I'm sending Neal to the Jaguars is because it seems to be, the common trend where all these analysts who are really plugged into the league are putting Neal number one. But oddly enough, I haven't heard any actual report that the Jaguars are in love with Evan Neal. So I'm really interested to see if he does just get cemented as the guy the Jaguars want number one overall, or if this is just everyone's best guess right now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we haven't heard anything out of the Jaguars whatsoever, and all of a sudden it just seemed like people were between Hutchinson and Thibodeaux, and then all of Neal number one, and that's basically consensus now. But I think it's if the Jaguars do pick him number one, it's the right pick, and I think at the moment it's the right pick for the mock.
Yeah. At number two overall, I have the Detroit Lions picking Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end from Michigan. I actually read that they're really not in love with any prospect at number two. I don't blame them personally. I think the first 5-6 picks, I wouldn't be in love with any prospect. There's a lot of players who are going to be really solid in the NFL, but nobody who's quite the value for each of those really high picks. That being said, Hutchinson is a really safe bet. You might not be getting a Nick Bosa, a Myles Garrett, Chase Young type player, but you're still getting a pro bowler who's going to be giving you a big infusion at a great position of need. So I think for the Lions, they get the hometown guy in Aiden Hutchinson. It'd be a really sensible pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a really high floor. You know exactly what you're getting with him, and I think he's a guy that could help turn around that culture in Detroit.
Excuse me for that timer going off there. But at number three, I have the Houston Texans picking Ike Ekwonu, offensive lineman from NC State. I'm surprised that Ike has gotten this high in terms of his draft stock, but it seems that like teams absolutely love his mean streak, his ability to just pancake defenders play after play. And if you think about the Patriots contingency that Houston has down there in the AFC South, I could see them opting for maybe a cleaner prospect in Ekwonu versus the next guy who we'll be talking about, Thibodeaux, who has some injury concerns. There's been some whispers that he doesn't love football. It seems like Ekwonu is just your hard-nosed Patriot pick for a team that has a lot of representatives that used to be in New England.
Yeah, I think, if he does end up going this high, it's a little higher than either of us would like.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, like you said a couple of minutes ago, the top 5-6 picks, nobody really that we're in love with. So I could definitely see Icky going number three. And I think what kind of shot him up draft boards was when Dane Brugler projected him first overall, and that kind of turned some heads, and everyone kind of bumped him up the board.
That's why I'm interested to see in the coming weeks, and especially when we get the combine where all these evaluators and general managers are talking to each other. I'd like to see if a lot of this is the analysts copying each other's mock drafts, or are they actually really hearing things about these teams loving these specific guys or as early as January, February. And now at number 4, I have the Jets picking Kayvon Thibodeaux. There's been a lot of talk that he might slide maybe even out of the top 5, but as I was doing this mock draft, I just couldn't see who they would pick above Thibodeaux. Thibodeaux would be the correct pick here. He's in contention to be the best player in the draft, in my opinion, still, despite really what seems like a lot of negative buzz around him. And the Jets have needed a star defensive end for a long time. I think this should be the pick if he's available.
Yeah, as a Jets fan, I'd be really happy with this pick. I think some of the negative press just comes to the fact that Thibodeaux's been in such a positive light for, since he came out of high school. And I think sometimes people just try to poke holes in something that really doesn't need holes poked into. So I think Thibodeaux, like you said, one of the best players, if not the best player in the whole draft.
I think that was a good way to put it. And now at number 5, I have the New York Giants with the first of their 2 top 10 picks, picking Charles Cross, offensive tackle from Mississippi State. I think this is a pick that makes a lot of sense. He's a really solid prospect, really safe, that I think is going to be a really good bookend tackle for the next 10 years in the NFL. And we know the Giants could really use that on their offensive line.
Yeah, this pick makes a lot of sense. Not really much to say. Their offensive line definitely needs some help.
Now at number 6, maybe the first curveball of this mock draft, I have the Carolina Panthers picking Kenny Pickett, quarterback from Pittsburgh, who was the Heisman finalist, one of the Heisman finalists after a great 2021 season. There's been a lot of talk out of Carolina that they're probably going to stick with Sam Darnold because of how financially committed they are to him. But I always didn't fully understand that. 1, because of how poorly Darnold played this year. 2, because Matt Rule knows that he really needs to nail the quarterback position in 2021, or he's going to be out of a job and might not get another shot at being a head coach. So does he really want to put all his eggs into the basket that's Sam Darnold's really inconsistent career? Or does he want to draft a quarterback who it would be playing on a rookie contract, so wouldn't be that expensive, and roll with that? Now, the buzz out of the Senior Bowl was that Malik Willis might be moving into the QB1 spot. I'm hesitant to completely believe that, in large part because Kenny Pickett really wowed teams in interviews. Apparently, he was head and shoulders above any other quarterback, and I think that had almost even more value than how dazzling Willis was on the practice field at the Senior Bowl.
And I think we have heard a few rumors from some reliable sources that the Panthers do like Kenny Pickett. So, a long ways away from the draft, it'll be interesting to see how all the quarterbacks fall out on the board.
Especially interesting for the Panthers because we know that their owner was rumored to love Mac Jones last year. They ended up passing on him. I've heard the same rumor that David Tepper loves Kenny Pickett. So we'll see whether or not that comes to fruition. But at number 7 overall, I have the Giants passing on a quarterback again. I don't agree with it, but it seems like they're going to stick with Daniel Jones. And I have them selecting David Ojabo, the defensive end from Michigan. I expect him to be edge number 3. He's not my edge 3 because I think he's just a little raw, but he's got all the traits, super high ceiling with just his incredible bend and burst off the edge. And with a combine performance that he's going to absolutely blow the roof off of, I think that he's going to be rising at least this high.
Yeah, I think it's a really good defensive end class. I mean, we'll get to your 8th pick in a second, but I mean, 4 defensive ends in the top 10 that are all definitely possible to happen in April.
Yep. At number 8, I have the Atlanta Falcons picking George Karloftis. Very different kind of defensive end. He's, instead of bending around the edge like Ojabo, he's just going to power through you and constantly pressure the quarterback in that way. And I think he has kind of a large range because he's not exactly what most evaluators like from defensive ends. They like to see that elite burst and bend around the edge, and Karloftis is more of your throwback. I'm going to shove you right into the quarterback, but man, applying that much pressure on such a consistent basis is really valuable. And we know the Falcons really need a defensive end, so I think it would make a lot of sense here.
Yeah, I think Karloftis is a guy with a high floor. You know exactly what you're getting. His tape looked really similar from last year and the year before, which is a good thing because it was really good tape. Like you said, not a super athletic guy with great bend, but super powerful. Great ability to convert speed to power. Definitely worthy of a top 10 pick.
Now at number 9, I have the Denver Broncos taking the second quarterback off the board, Malik Willis from Liberty. He stole the show at the Senior Bowl. We know that he's a great dual threat. He is quite the project. You're going to have to teach him how really to overhaul his mechanics, teach him how to read NFL defenses, and let him go through the bumps in the road that are going to come as he adjusts to a much higher level of competition. But at the same time, he's going to be getting to work with a much better supporting cast than he did in college. So I think top 10 is rich, but there's a lot of upside there to uncover. And I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a team that's going to want to take that shot on him. I think Teddy Bridgewater is definitely a good enough bridge quarterback to not have to rush Malik Willis into the QB1 position. And the Broncos, with everything else, all the other young pieces they have on offense, could be looking this year to drop that quarterback in there, or at least to get the guy that they want to work with for a year before dropping him in.
Yeah, Willis really seems to be rising up draft boards. I know we've heard that the Steelers are in love with him, but they'll definitely have to move up the board to get him. So I think, going 9 to the Broncos, we're not projecting any draft trades. So this pick makes a lot of sense.
Now at number 10, I have the New York Jets selecting Drake London, wide receiver from USC. And this is one of those picks where it's based off what I've heard. I've heard from multiple sources that the Jets are in love with Drake London. And also I've heard that London is a guy who could rise into the top 10. So this was really connecting the dots, and it would give Zach Wilson a big body, reliable target to go to when he needs to. That would be a really good thing for his development.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets need definitely a reliable wide receiver one. This pick would make sense. I wouldn't be thrilled with it because I think Treylon Burks is my wide receiver one, so I'd love to see them pick him here at number 10, but definitely a pick that makes a lot of sense. Let's pull up the second
graphic, and that'll have at number 11 with the Washington football team picking Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss. So here I have him getting leapfrogged by Malik Willis in this draft order, but I think he's just as much in the QB1 conversation as Pickett and Willis. And for that matter, he is still my QB1, and I'm confident that he will stay my QB1 throughout the process. My biggest concern is durability. You've got to get in his head that he can't put his body on the line nearly as much as he did at Ole Miss. He ended the year with just way too many injury issues to both his ankles. If you can teach him how to slide, teach him how to avoid hits, I really like his game. I think it's really translatable to the NFL. He's got good arm strength, good accuracy, good processing. And I think Washington is the most likely team in the first round to pick a quarterback. It's almost just a question of who.
Yeah, I have heard some rumors that they'll be looking at the veteran quarterback market as well. And if they do go that route, they probably wouldn't be picking here at 11. But then in that case, maybe the team, whichever veteran quarterback, they trade for, that team might be here, and that pick could definitely be Matt Corral. Like you said, he's my QB1 as well. I would not be surprised to see him as a second or third quarterback off the board, though, just based off of what we're hearing.
And now we're going to get into presenting these picks in groups of 3 as we get later in the draft order. And as I said during the last mock draft episode, this is where the value gets so strong. And you're getting guys who are really just fringe top 10 talents that are going to be going deep into the teens. And so starting here with at number 12, Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame, one of the very best players in this draft class, followed by at number 13, Trayvon Walker, defensive end from Georgia. That might be a little too rich for me, but everything we're hearing is that the NFL is in love with just his extreme athleticism for his size, his versatility inside, outside. And at number 14, I've got another great value pick with the Ravens picking up Sauce Gardner, the cornerback from Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think both Kyle Hamilton at 12 and Sauce Gardner at 14 are great picks. And, I have them both as top 10 talents. But just the way the draft board falls sometimes, I think, they could end up falling out of the top 10. And I'm sure the Vikings would jump on the chance to pick a guy like Kyle Hamilton to fill in that safety position. Like you said about Walker, probably a little rich for me. But again, the mock draft is also based off of what we're hearing. And I've heard some things as well that the NFL really loves this guy.
And I have the Eagles nailing their 15th and 16th picks in the first round, getting Derek Stingley at a discount in large part because of his injury issues the last couple of years. If he can stay healthy, he has all pro potential. And then one of my favorite players in this draft class at 16, Jermaine Johnson, defensive end from Florida State. He's my edge 3. He's a top 10 talent in my eyes, and he was the best player at the Senior Bowl. At 17, a guy who's gotten a lot of buzz coming out of the Senior Bowl, especially in the media. I have the Los Angeles Chargers picking Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. You've probably seen the videos of him just throwing guys to the ground at the Senior Bowl. He's got a real mean streak. You do have to coach up a lot of his technique to allow him to play at a high level in the NFL, but you see that right side of the offensive line for the Los Angeles Chargers as a high priority for upgrading this offseason, and I could see them going for Penning here.
Yeah, like you said about the Eagles, A+, A+. I mean, Derek Stingley, a guy that's, borderline top 10 for me only because of his injury concerns. If he didn't have any of those injuries or maybe had one, he'd definitely be a top 10 talent. Like you said, all pro potential, and the Eagles are in need of some secondary help. And Jermaine Johnson was a guy that I liked, not as much as you before the Senior Bowl. You were kind of the first guy on that Jermaine Johnson train. But you see both Johnson and Penning, 2 Senior Bowl guys that probably before the Senior Bowl might have been fringe first-round picks, and both had good weeks at the Senior Bowl, and they've, been rewarded in mock drafts being pushed up the board.
At number 18, I have the Saints going quarterback, Sam Howell from UNC. It's tough to see them not addressing the quarterback position this offseason with Winston, who's yet to be re-signed, coming off an ACL tear. Taysom Hill was probably more of a Sean Payton guy than anybody else's guy with now Dennis Allen there. He still is an in-house hire, but I'd be surprised if he wanted to roll with Taysom as QB1. Howell is a guy that I wouldn't be comfortable picking in the first round. I think he regressed too much in 2021. The accuracy dipped. He struggled too much against pressure. But I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day if he went round 1 because there's just that many teams in the first round that need a quarterback.
Yeah, I think Howell showed a lot of traits to potentially be a top 5 pick 2 years ago. And then this year, like you said, he definitely regressed, and he fell out of the first round completely for both of us. But like you said, there's a lot of quarterback needy teams, and I'd be shocked if there were less than 3 quarterbacks that go in round 1. You could definitely see 4, maybe even 5 with, some reports about Ritter being well liked by NFL teams.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think Ritter's really on that late first, early second round range, even though neither of us think he should be going that high. Now, the Eagles are nailing a 3rd pick in this draft, in this mock draft, with Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. It's tough to see them going wide receiver 3 drafts in a row, but they still could use that help in the wide receiver room. I think Wilson would step in there and immediately be their 1B to Devontae Smith. At number 20, the Steelers are getting a fantastic value pick at the biggest position of need, addressing the offensive line with Kenyon Green, guard from Texas A&M. And at 21, I have the New England Patriots with an interesting pick, getting Jordan Davis, the monster defensive tackle from Georgia. You think of what they had in Vince Wilfork for that long. I think Bill could relish at the opportunity of replicating that by taking Davis, and especially considering that they have Christian Barmore, who's a very different type of defensive tackle who can really get at the pass rusher. If Davis is occupying double teams and freeing up Barmore to get a single team to get to the quarterback, man, that could be a scary duo in New England.
Yeah, between Barmore and Davis definitely would be scary along that defensive line. Garrett Wilson, like you said, at 19 for the Eagles, a great pick. He's a guy, I posted a scouting report on him a little while ago. I got a lot of heat for it in the comments regarding his contested catch ability. Went back, rewatched the tape, had some clips sent to me. This definitely changed my opinion on Wilson, and I think getting him at 19 would be a very good pick for the Eagles. Kenyon Green, like you said, an important pick for the Steelers to shore up that offensive line that has struggled the past few years. And Jordan Davis, to New England, a guy that we're a little lower on, I'd say, than consensus. But from what I've been hearing, it seems like he probably will end up in the first round just because of his freaky size and athleticism for that size. And a guy like Bill would know what to do with Jordan Davis on the defensive line.
Yeah, I think my opinion on where Davis goes is highly dependent on the context. Is it in a division where you've got elite running backs that you need to stop? Is it in a situation where you want to free up a talented pass rusher on the interior like Christian Barmore? And now to move on to the next three picks, once again, fantastic value picks with the linebackers coming off the board. First at 22 with the Raiders, picking Devin Lloyd. You've got pick 23 is Trent McDuffie, the cornerback from Washington, going to Arizona to team him up with his former college teammate Byron Murphy. And then at 24, the Dallas Cowboys get Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia. I would love that pick for the Cowboys because if you can have Dean be the middle linebacker calling the defense and you're allowing Parsons to just run free and wreak havoc, oh my, that is an elite second level, both on rookie contracts for the next 4 years. I think that would be the first step to getting the Dallas Cowboys back to the big game that they've been dying to get back to in so long.
Yeah, I mean, both these linebackers at 22 and 24, great value. Definitely guys that I have rated higher than this. I really like both of them as a prospect. I think Lloyd's a little bit more raw, but really great as a pass rusher. And, Dean runs all over the field, makes all the tackles, and is also very good as a pass rusher in his own right. I think McDuffie to the Cardinals, definitely a position of need, and they lost Patrick Peterson. And he's been a guy that's been getting, thrown in the first round conversation a lot. I think Daniel Jeremiah had a mock to the Jets at 10. So definitely a lot of smoke to Trent McDuffie going in the first round and maybe even higher than this.
I agree. I think McDuffie could go even higher, but now his current college teammate who's also really rising, it sounds like, I have going off the board at 25 to the Buffalo Bills, followed by a pair of wide receivers who I have graded much higher than this. Jameson Williams at 26 to the Titans and Treylon Burks at 27 to the Bucks. We both absolutely love Treylon Burks. Williams is my number 2 in this class, and that they would be just great infusions to those wide receiver rooms.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Gordon, the other cornerback from Washington, and let's just take a second. Washington has had a lot of very good defensive backs over the past few years, and that's definitely been really underrated. But going to Williams and Burks, also my wide receiver 1 and 2, just two great talents. Burks, I have a top 10 grade on, and Jameson Williams right outside the top 10. And I think his draft position really depends on the combine medicals and where teams think he is at with his torn ACL. Obviously, wish him all the best in his recovery from that, but I kind of would be shocked to see him fall out of the first round because he was that good of a prospect.
Totally agree there. And at 28, I have the Green Bay Packers taking Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle from Georgia. He's a big Senior Bowl riser, and I have him graded even higher than I do Jordan Davis. I think he's the top defensive tackle in this draft. Maybe not a first-round talent, but so much upside to uncover, especially in terms of pass rushing. And Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa, number 29 to the Dolphins, is a fantastic pick. I have a fringe top 10 grade on him, and he's falling all the way down here. Part of the reason is because I don't think he's too scheme versatile. You really need a zone blocking scheme to be able to plug him in there. But I think he would be a tremendous starter for them. And then at number 30, and this is a pick that I think most NFL teams don't want to see happen, but the Kansas City Chiefs picking Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State. He would step in and immediately be their wide receiver 2. He's a field stretcher from the slot, runs great routes too, great speed. It would be a scary sight to see him team up with the rest of that offense.
Yeah, I think the Packers taking Devontae Wyatt at 28 is definitely an interesting pick. I think he's also my top defensive tackle. Doesn't have a first-round grade, though. I think, you hold that same opinion. It's really hard to ever get a grasp on what the Packers are going to do. I feel like every year we think they're going to take a wide receiver. We always mock them a wide receiver because they need a wide receiver 2, and they never end up going there, and they end up going elsewhere. Linderbaum at 29, like you said, a great value pick. And, you mentioned the lack of maybe scheme versatility. It's also the fact that he's a center, and for whatever reason, centers seem to be devalued in the NFL draft, which I think is just not the right way to go, because the center is very important position on the offensive line. Obviously, getting the ball to the quarterback, but those are the guys that you expect to, set up the offensive line, make all the calls along the offensive line. And I think he could definitely do that for the Dolphins. And then Dotson at 30, I mean, man, another speedster to the Chiefs. This pick would not surprise me at all if he was on the board at 30.
Now we're getting into the two teams, or actually one team that lost in the Super Bowl, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. You've got to go to the reason why they lost this game. That offensive line needs a total makeover. I think the only remaining starter from this 2021 team should be center Trey Hopkins. All four other spots need to be upgraded in a similar fashion to what the Chiefs accomplished last season in their remake of their offensive line. I think right here, Zion Johnson, interior offensive line from Boston College, makes a lot of sense. And I say interior offensive line because while he was really good at guard last year, he showed at the Senior Bowl that he can transition to center too. So he's got 3 position versatility, maybe even emergency offensive tackle versatility if you need him to. He's just going to be a rock solid starter wherever you put him. And boy, could the Bengals use that. And then at 32, the Detroit Lions, the pick that they got from the Rams in the Goff Stafford trade. I have them picking a name you've probably never seen in the first round yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he hears his name called on the first night of the draft, and that's Boye Mafe, the defensive end from Minnesota. I think he's a lesser hype version of David Ojabo in that he's got tremendous athletic traits, tremendous flashes. He's just yet to really put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals at 31, I think they have to go offensive line. I saw a mock draft on Pro Football Focus, I think yesterday, and they had the Bengals picking an offensive lineman every round. And that's honestly, that's not realistic, but that's really what they should do. I feel like they're pretty solid at all of the positions other than offensive line. And like you said, they definitely need to do what the Chiefs did to rebuild their offensive line. They need to get offensive linemen in free agency. They definitely need to get some in the draft. So Zion Johnson, maybe a guy like Bernard Raymond might go here at 31. So
Yeah.
Offensive line, I think you can write that in with Penn and whoever that is, to be determined. And then Boye Mafe, definitely a guy that you kind of see drafted at the end of the first round. We saw it last year with a guy like Jason Owe, Greg Rousseau, guys that have really good physical traits, but like you said, haven't really put it all together yet, still raw, but a high upside guy.
I had some people in the comment section on Instagram give me heat for sending the Lions 2 defensive ends with their top 2 picks, but we've actually seen that become something that NFL teams are not afraid to do. The Colts did it with Kwity Paye and Dayo Odeyingbo. The Bills did it with Gregory Rousseau and Carlos Basham. I think that a Lions defense that needs a big upgrade, it really starts with getting to the pass rusher. Hutchinson and Mafe, wow, I think that would be a great pair, and Lions fans should not be complaining about that.
Yeah, the only pushback I'll give you on that is, like, I could completely understand going back-to-back defensive ends, but they do have a lot of other positions of need.
Yeah.
But they could really, honestly, they could go anywhere with this pick. This 32 could be a pick that you see maybe a team that likes Desmond Ridder and he falls all the way to 32 and wants that 5th-year option. I could see definitely a potential for trade at pick 32.
Maybe that Ridder pick is the Lions themselves.
Yeah. So I think 32, the door's wide open. Like you said, trade, whatever players have fallen down the board that, a team doesn't want to see slip into day 2.
And that concludes my second version of this mock draft process. It's so much fun. There was a lot of buzz coming out of the Senior Bowl, and the NFL Combine is right around the corner. So throughout the process, we'll keep you caught up, alternating between our mock drafts every 2 weeks. And we'll be breaking down some NFL rumors and reports that we've been hearing and reading pretty soon, too. It's a great process to be a part of. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back with another episode of Bold Take Scouting Podcast